The biggest fraud in this case was to the tune of $2.1 billion. When Steve Bannon got arrested, he got arrested on this guy's yacht, and this story is just wild. It was a crazy case. 11 different Russian individuals siphoned off $11 billion from Medicare, and all that the government was able to recover was $25 million out of $11 billion, and that was in 12 months. Some of the big law firms have associates that bill 2,400 hours a year. That is bordering fraudulent. The associates are probably lying. The firm is okay with it because the clients are okay with it, and the clients are okay with it because they don't have a guy like me that's looking at this and saying, wait a minute, what the is this? We need less government intervention in our lives for people to succeed.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Like, I would not blow up hospitals with babies because there's terrorists underneath.
Actually, let's backpedal a little bit.
Sure, we should have started with this. This is what's going to get all the heat.
There's a lot to unpack with it, but realistically, I mean,
what it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs today in the studio, folks. As always, I got a real treat for you. Gabriel Vadasz. Did I pronounce that right?
Vadasz, yeah.
Vadasz.
Close enough.
Vadasz. What'd you say that was?
It's Hungarian.
Hungarian.
Yeah.
Folks, this guy's an attorney, an investor, and an entrepreneur, founder of Gabriel Vadasz PC. What's PC?
It's just a professional corporation. Fancy way of saying it's either a law firm, a medical practice, or a CPA consultant.
You don't look that old. How old are you?
34.
Yeah, so you're young. So you got out of school and went right into law?
Yeah, I went right into law and went right into starting my own law firm too, on top of that, which I feel like a lot of my colleagues, they ended up going and deciding to work for somebody, get some good grounding in whatever areas that they wanted to focus on, and then go do their own thing eventually. I decided to just hit the ground running.
No, why not?
I'd never been the kind to really work for somebody. At 19, I sold a company for a healthy chunk, and I've just always been.
What was that company?
So that was pretty much Uber Eats before Uber Eats was a thing.
No shit.
Yeah, I was living in Flagstaff at the time, and I remember really wanting food. It was like 10 o'clock at night, but no place was delivering. And then I realized that there's restaurants that are open, but no one's delivering. So I ended up going and getting half of Flagstaff under contract by just having the restaurants that weren't delivering say now delivering, and then my drivers would go pick up the food. And we were using Voxer, a walkie-talkie app. It was the most ghetto-rigged business operation I've had. But for 19, built it up pretty good. Within 6 months, ended up selling it to a foreign exchange student. And yeah, that was. So
you're an entrepreneur by the definition.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you also leads ventures under Apache Consults.
Yeah, so Apache Consults is my consultancy. I'd say that's probably my primary focus nowadays.
Why Apache?
So I fly helicopters too.
Damn, dog.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I had a law firm that I sold, and after I sold it, I decided to start pursuing a hobby of flying helicopters because I've been in planes. I've done all sorts of things. The one thing that's given me a panic attack was being in a helicopter for the first time. So I was like, I need to learn how to handle this. So I started flying helicopters, and Apaches are just badass. So yeah.
And Venator Investment Group.
Yeah. So
like a family office because you got paid so much coin.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just my own private little venture capital group, if you will, where if someone pitches me something that I want to do, then I'll usually have it go through a subsidiary of Venator Investment Group. And that's just kind of the umbrella for all the different ventures.
What's Venator mean?
Venator is actually just a variation of my last name. I'm not 100% sure if my dad's accurate on this one, but he had some story about how our name originated as winter in some European language. And then as we were migrating through Europe, letters were changed a little bit and the meaning changed. And when we ended up in Hungary, Vadasz was what they landed on, and that had a different meaning in Hungary, which was hunter, and that's the one that's stuck with our family since. So Venator was, according to my dad, the original name that we had. So, yeah.
So you're doing all kinds of things with that group. basically in the legal, financial, and the consulting sectors.
Yeah. So, I mean, the primary hat that I wear, I would say, is as a consultant. What people usually will reach out to me for is legal issues that they're having. But what they don't realize is that, I mean, only a part of what they're dealing with is usually a legal issue. I don't need to be their attorney to address that legal issue. What I do is I get engaged as their consultant, and then I go and I hire various different law firms for each possible matter that they could have. So if we're talking about a big corporation that's had, I don't know, compliance issues, for example, I'll come in and I'll find a specific niche of compliance concerns that we might have, or a few of them. And then I'll do a lot of research into who the best firms for that very isolated issue are. And I'll review dockets, I'll review lawsuits, I'll review results from lawsuits. If we're talking about an OJ case where it's a homicide that the DA is bringing forward, and we know that their biggest weakness is in a variable of intent, and there might be an issue with the glove fitting, that I'm looking at every single attorney that's ever argued that. And then if there's an attorney that's argued that multiple times, I'm going for that attorney, especially if they have positive results, because they're going to know it better than the guy who's got 30 DUIs, 5 federal cases, most of them smuggling. And then this is the case that they're going to just have in the back of their mind. So I'm kind of the go-to, and I'm the one that I know what to look for really when it comes to that. Not that the clients don't have more invested in the results, but they can go down rabbit holes that are legally irrelevant. And we see that pretty often. And whether it's good or bad, I guess only my clients can speak for the results. But I think at the end of the day, we end up getting them pretty substantially beneficial results just because of that particular approach.
Well, plus, you're not a lawyer, so you don't know. So I'd rather hire a lawyer to go find and secure the best law firms. Yeah.
And for me too, it allows me to be very versatile because I've built a law firm, and I've had originally the business model that I had when I built a law firm. I got it to the point of having 13 attorneys, and then I sold it. And by doing that, I learned all of the traits, for running a law firm specifically, for what I'm looking for to make sure that attorneys are doing their job well. And I know exactly what to look at. I want to make sure they're billing ethically. I want to make sure that what they're billing for actually happened. I want to make sure that the clients are getting the results that we're trying to drive towards, and that we're not going down these little tangents and roads arguing over things that, are just going to cost the client money for no good reason and no strategic reason.
So you're an ethical lawyer.
Well, listen, I guess it's all subject to interpretation, but the point is you want to make sure that if you're spending the money, that it's getting spent appropriately. I am not in the business of having my clients reach the end of their case and then look back at me and say that they had some regrets with what I did, especially the larger figure cases, which typically nowadays are what I tend to gravitate to. I work a lot with corporations and
big ones.
Yeah.
So you're not looking for little fender bender cases. You're looking for the big mamba jambas.
Yeah. I have great referrals.
For $500 million SEC settlement.
Yeah. Back in 2021, 22, I think was when they reached the settlement.
Well, once you work on sizes like that, like the rest of them are, you ever play quarter slots and, quarter video poker, and then you get a little more money, and then you're doing the dollars. Yeah. Well, once you get to like the $5 a hand level, like the quarters are, they're just not even fun anymore.
Yeah. And there's parts of those law firm models that I do envy. I think there's some parts of them that are very interesting. It's just not what I enjoy, though. Right now I've got a deal where I was working a lot with JP Morgan, and they refer people to me, or corporations to me, prior to getting bought out by private equity. And if they don't have their ducks in a row, they'll send them to me. I'll figure out what their checklist is. I'll figure out what they're missing on that checklist. And then I'll go and do exactly what I just described. I'll hire the CPA firms. I'll hire the law firms, put all the agreements in place, figure out if there's any lawsuits pending, if there's any sexual harassment claims. We're getting to the bottom of it before we're pitching it to private equity.
Do you think those type of things screw up a private equity deal?
Oh, there's so many things that can screw up a private equity deal, but liability is probably the biggest one. But more importantly, JP Morgan won't even touch a client if they don't have their ducks in a row. If they think there's going to be a partner dispute halfway in, why would they invest the resources into it? They get paid only if the deal happens usually. So they want the deal to go through.
So if someone's thinking about exiting a company, how big of a company before they would call you?
So the deals that I've been working on have been $25 to $250 million in revenue a year. Those are the deals that I have worked on regularly. It's a nice little sweet spot. Beyond that,
yeah, but you're like an elephant hunter. I mean, I'd be the same way though, because the work's the same, whether you're trying to get a $3 million settlement or a $300 million settlement.
And honestly, I do enjoy the smaller ones. It's just you're probably not going to get bought out by private equity. So I have a good friend on a pool league every Wednesday night, and this guy has been in the culinary industry for, I don't know, a long time. He's bordering retirement right now, and he's looking at selling his business, and he's been doing well. I mean, it's pulling in probably $2-3 million a year. It's not something JP Morgan would look at, but I'm absolutely going to help him. Why? Because I mean, it first off, it feels good. That's like the first step for me is I'm not going to take on a case if it doesn't feel good or it doesn't excite me. Like I want something that I can sink my teeth into. I want something that I'm going to stay up at night obsessing over, going down all these legal rabbit holes, doing case law research, finding the only other 3 people on the entire continent that have dealt with those issues and analyzing exactly what they did to work past it. That's the type of scenario that I'm going to work on nowadays. And in that case, I mean, I'm not going to pitch it to JP Morgan, but there's going to be other buyers out there that...
Do you pitch the deal?
Well, I mean, I'll definitely bring them deals for sure. That's kind of... So that's how it works, at least with the bigger banks. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to refer them people. They're going to refer people to me. And
well, dude, I'm gonna need your number before you leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because one of these days I'm gonna get in the exit space. Meaning, okay, because I think I've already waited too long. But one of these days, maybe I'll have something that I can exit. Yeah. This software company that you're in now. Yeah. One of these days, I'm gonna want to exit. And you don't know anything unless you know some things. And I've never exited. Yeah. So I've always just built. Okay. But I'm starting to believe that buying companies is more valuable than building them.
There's people on the buying side. I mean, there's definitely people on the buying side. What you see a lot of times is people in the private equity space that are jumping into the buying component. I mean, well, okay, so it all depends. I've been more on the selling side historically throughout my life. That's just what I've done. That's what I've enjoyed. Maybe at a different point, I'll be on the opposite end. I've invested in different ventures and it's been fun learning, but building something to the point of sale is just, that's always worked out for me. I haven't really had that roadmap before. I would say, I mean, prior to an exit, definitely look at what retirement's going to look like for you. Because I mean, when I sold my law firm, I went crazy and I wasn't like, I did well on the sale, but I was 32. I golfed for 90 days straight, just moved to San Francisco, new city, live in Phoenix right now. And for the first 30 days, my golf game got better. The second 30 days, my golf game got worse. And then the last 30 days, it was horrendous. And eventually I was like, you know what? I need to do something productive with my life. This is not what I want to be at 32. And
were you considering it?
Considering which part?
Being done?
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty burnt out. I hit a point, so the firm that I sold, I built it rapidly. Within 3 years of being out of law school, I got to the point where we were doing very high revenue. I think it was probably about almost 8 figures. We're close to 8 figures annually by the third year. And had 13 lawyers working for me. A few of them were off counsel, which means they also had their own law firms, but 13 attorneys working for me. pretty sizable staff, heavy caseload. Realistically, I could have just not done anything and I would have just seen revenue come in from that caseload. Up until today, I still get phone calls from some of the former clients wanting to hire me. I just won't take on those cases anymore. But again, I was just burnt out. There's a lot that goes with specifically law firm business models. That's just red tape that kind of takes away what the outside perception is of the legal field. So everyone's got an idea of what it is to be a lawyer until they start lawyering. And then they're like, wait a minute, this is what I signed up for. But B, it just takes away from really what I felt like I was doing it for, because my whole thing was I want to absorb my clients' issues and litigate for them as heavily as I can, as though it was my own issue. I want to take it personal. But when 80% of what your job is just CYA to make sure that stuff doesn't bite you down the road, it's taking away from what's actually beneficial to the client. So when I sold the firm, I was pretty much, at the time, I was convinced that I wasn't going to be practicing again. If I was going to change things. And that's what I ended up doing, was took on clients again, but then it's a totally different type of client. And it was a totally different approach to how I handled those cases. And I felt like those approaches addressed all of the red tape, if you will.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you decided to kind of just be the quarterback.
Yeah.
So you don't have any caseloads. You just hired the people and gave them caseloads.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the reality. I mean, people, so if they're going into a big case and they have the budget, they'll just hire the big law firms a lot of times, thinking that, there you go, I brought on the New England Patriots and I'm set. That's not always how it works. There's a time and place for the big law firm. There's also a time and place for the small law firm. And if you're just throwing a $5 million retainer that's your budget for a case at a big law firm and telling them bill, they're going to bill it. And some of the big law firms have associates that bill 2,400 hours a year. 2,400 billable hours is impossible. That is bordering fraudulent in many circumstances. There isn't enough time. The associates are probably lying. The firm is okay with it because the clients are okay with it. And the clients are okay with it because they don't have a guy like me that's looking at this and saying, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? Like, sorry, am I allowed to swear on that?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
and that I'm telling you, to me, that's like you're selling me on shit. If I ever have a legal issue, I want to call you, but you won't take just everybody. No, I mean, again, it's got to be something that I'll feel good taking. It's got to be something that I would enjoy. It's got to be something that, if you crash your car, I'm going to refer you to somebody who's going to handle that car crash really, really well. If a semi truck runs over your family, then we're starting to get in the territory of, okay, let's start building a team because there's a lot at stake. If you're going through a divorce and there's less than, I'd say $5-10 million worth of assets that are going to get litigated over, I have good referrals for that. And I mean, excellent referrals. You're only hunting whales.
What was that?
You're only hunting whales.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's got to be something that'll spiderweb. It's got to be something that'll spiderweb or something that'll be enjoyable. And those are kind of the two things.
If I were to sell Lightspeed and I said, "Oh, I'm going to try to get 200 million," that's enough. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to quantify any particular number and say, if you don't have this, don't call me. Call me. I enjoy having these conversations. I enjoy seeing what people are doing. I enjoy looking under the hood of people's cars and saying, okay, here's what's really going on over here. And here's what I would do different. And I mean, obviously if it's solicited, which usually it is, but I enjoy looking at these things and actually seeing what's working for people, seeing what I would do different, and, throwing out my 2 cents, take it or leave it. I've had law firms that have hired me and they've built up rapidly and then they were slowly declining, which happens a lot where one in particular, not going to name any names, but I mean, they had an entire market in Arizona cornered for the better part of 20 years. In the first 10 years, they were just crushing it. And like everybody knows them. I went to lunch with them the first time And the chef came out of the restaurant to shake the hand of the attorney that I was sitting with. And I was like, damn, that's crazy that there's that much recognition. But the second part of that decade, the numbers started trailing down. And what happened there was really, burnout. They weren't enjoying the lawyering component anymore. So they weren't as involved in that component anymore. And that's reflective of the numbers. And that's usually where you see smaller firms or newer attorneys stepping in and starting to absorb that revenue. And that's where you kind of have, someone like me would step in and say, okay, here's what I would do. Here's the roadmap I'd give you. It wasn't a big dollar figure case by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still friends with that attorney to this day. We go to dinners. My wife and I go to dinners with her and her husband every couple months. Like they're coming over for Thanksgiving, stuff like that. But I mean, it's something I enjoy doing, so I'm going to do it. But
well, I mean, again, I'd be the same. So I'm not saying it in a negative way, but like, if I'm a lawyer, bro, I'm going after some biggies. Yeah. Because you guys get paid based on the size of the settlements.
It depends. It depends on the case.
Like, how come lawyers don't just go flat fee? Do they sometimes?
Some do. Some do. It depends on what you're doing. So I will work on a contingency sometimes. I'll work on a retainer other times. The standard for me is usually a retainer. I'll switch to contingency, as will most attorneys, once they know for a fact that there's money at the end of the line. Yeah. So
that's how you know if you have a good case, because a lawyer will take it contingency.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
If they won't, then you got some questionable facts.
Well, I mean, it's either questionable facts or it's questionable whether or not you're actually going to collect the judgment at the end of it, which collection work is a whole other process that I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about. A lot of people are really quick to react emotionally, hire lawyers, litigate things, bring matters in front of courts and get a judge to rule on it. And you can be 1,000% in the right, but if you end up with a $20 million judgment against the guy that's paying $600 a month in rent with his roommates and drives one car because he doesn't have a car collection, you're not going to collect anything. There's not much that you can do with that judgment. That's nice that you have it.
Can't you just lean him for the rest of his life?
You can. It's going to cost you money though. I mean, when I was in law school, I worked on an app that I was developing, and we had $7 million worth of capital committed to that app's development. And I got screwed over by the app developers through law school. Whole long story, but I ended up suing the app developers, and I got a judgment against them for $150,000. And that was what I ended up paying them for the development of the app. I haven't seen a single dollar of that $150,000. It's just been accruing interest. And every now and then I'll think about it. I'll do an asset search. I'll get a private investigator involved. We'll issue some garnishments. We'll issue some liens. But if someone doesn't have money, they don't have money. And I mean, there's an opposite side to that too, where they have a lot of money, then they can be really good at how they're hiding money, and they can make you spend a lot to get even a penny.
With corporate structures and shit like that, trusts.
Corporate structures, trusts, hiring law firms that know what they're doing.
I mean, at the end of the day, dude, the law is the law. So if I structure it right and you sued me and you find out I don't own anything, I just control it all, but you know deep down, that son of a bitch, that's just called asset protection.
Yeah. And I mean, it's asset protection is like really, really, well, when done right, it's like really, really good camouflage. So you can be well hidden, but that's kind of the key component. If someone's telling you about how they're hiding their assets, I can probably collect those assets pretty quickly. Whether it's in a trust or otherwise, there's usually compliance issues with how most people nowadays handle their trusts. So I can breach those walls pretty easily if there's any self-serving benefits with that trust. So
are you a compliance expert?
Depends on the specific case in front of me, but I've gone down rabbit holes for a lot of asset protection stuff. I've gone down rabbit holes for compliance for corporate structuring, for Medicare. I wouldn't qualify myself as an expert. Again, I feel like I know just enough on a lot of subjects to know how to find the experts and bring them to the table. So a quarterback's not your best running back. A quarterback's not your good offensive lineman. A quarterback's good at getting the ball to the people that need to have the ball when they should have it.
How much more is it going to cost me which I should say how much is going to save me, because that's what it boils down to if you do this right. But I'm thinking, why wouldn't everybody hire a guy like you to put together and basically, because things we don't know as a lawyer. So if I hired you versus finding a good law firm myself, how much more am I going to spend?
Well, I mean, it depends. I'm treating every case on a case-by-case basis. I mean, you'll spend less than you will with a big law firm, and I'm probably going to end up bringing the big law firms in anyways.
Do I pay you, or do I pay them?
Again, it depends on the scope. So
I might pay both.
Yeah, it's possible. It could be both. It's possible that it could just be me.
But then, part of what am I paying you? You're paying them.
Yeah, and a lot of times. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, there was a medical practice that was doing very high revenue, a lot of compliance issues. Our specific deal that we worked out was that they were going to be paying for most of the external law firms, at least the bigger external law firms, when the time came for the internal audits. A part of that for me is, I don't want to be spending time focusing on that component. I don't want to be spending my time focusing on anything unless the invoice was rejected by the big law firm, and then that partner is getting a hold of me and saying, hey, what's going on here? I want to send a checklist of things to the partner at the big law firm saying, hey, here's your very, very limited scope. Here's the compliance concerns I have, and this is the only thing I'm hiring you for. In the back of my mind, I have a budget that the client and I discussed for this firm and for that scope. And that's all I hire them for, and that's all we do. And the client's making sure that those bills get paid. And if they don't get paid, then I hear about it. And if they do get paid, then I'm just reviewing it to make sure that they're actually doing everything in line with what they should. So I'm looking at the billing statement and the line items, and probably a lot of partner meetings and hiring external consultancies sometimes as well. But that's what was appropriate in that particular representation. In a case where someone's looking at an exit, I mean, it could be something where the relationship starts off just me asking questions and I'm not even charging anything yet. And if we end up making something happen down the road, then I don't know, something on the tail end of a deal would be nice. And that's usually how these deals are worked out. If you go to JP Morgan, I think their percentage, I mean, not to speak for them, but I'm pretty sure the main percentages I've heard is they take 6% of private equity buyouts.
So if I sold for $200 million, I'd owe them 12.
Yeah.
But they would handle everything for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's still going to be work on your side for sure. But yeah, they would handle the bulk of it, and they'd bring people to the table.
Most entrepreneurs don't understand what goes into an exit. How much is there to deal with?
There's a lot, and it takes years.
You would think it'd be simple. Like, hey, you want my company for $200 million? You say, yeah. I go, write me a check.
Yeah. No,
that's not how it is.
No, that'd be nice.
How does it go?
That'd be nice. Well, I have had deals work out like that. Those are the smaller deals oftentimes, and it's someone looking to jump into a new cash flow. But what I've found is the bigger the multiple that you're getting on your I guess bottom line is when there's more motives for that business getting bought up. So private equity, a lot of times they'll have what's called roll-ups, where they just buy out a lot of different companies as long as they fit a certain criteria and fit inside of a certain box. And then they'll roll up all of those companies into one. And now this corporation is showing exactly the figures that they want on the profit loss. They know that they can change fundamentally some things on a internal level by spending X amount on CPAs and lawyers to structure those entities differently now that they have them in their sole control. And then what they'll go is they'll just sell it to another private equity at a different valuation. So what they bought at a 6X valuation, they've grown the revenue streams because they have the capital to do so. So they're getting higher dollar figures, but then on top of that, they're getting higher valuations because all they had to do was just shift the analysis. I mean, one of the famous cases was of this was WeWork. They were getting valuations as though they were a tech company or a real estate company, but they were getting tech valuations. Why? Because it was data driven and that's how they were pitching it. Now, that one fell on its face, but that's just one that's, very highly talked about. So it's WeWork. They were, I think now the company valuations had like $1 billion, and at one point it was 32. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
And they lost it?
Well, yeah. I mean, the valuation went down because it was just unrealistic. And that's the concern that a lot of people have with AI.
Well, that's when you get in the due diligence and you realize this thing isn't worth that.
Hopefully.
How do you figure when companies like lose money, but they're still worth $1 billion?
Well, I mean, it's all about how the valuations are built. So, I mean, you have things like EBITDA, where, I mean, the money's in the pipeline. They're just kicking the can down the road. So Amazon, I think they recently reported a profit, but up until then, they were investing in every other industry that they could possibly invest in, from pharmacies to shipment fulfillment to warehouses to real estate to tech to literally everything you can think of. But eventually you become Amazon. You just own everything. So you're going to have to see some degree of profits coming in. And I mean, honestly, investors kind of enjoy it because they know that while that ball is rolling, it's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of a company while you have that kind of momentum, but also your investors they might not be liquid all the time, especially with privately held companies. More often than not, privately held companies, if you're going that route, say I was to invest in one of these private equity funds, I'd only be able to liquidate my funds once in a blue moon. It's every, I don't know, one that I spoke to was every 2 years on the second quarter, you could liquidate your funds. And there's reasons for it. I mean, if you look at the Big Short, when he took that short position, he needs to know that the investors are just as committed as he is for his analysis to work. And it made them billions. So it stressed them out for several years. It led to a few threats of lawsuits, but you have...
Well, he was right.
Yeah, he was right in that case. We don't necessarily hear about all the ones where people are wrong. So, I mean, that's the risk though. And that's kind of the beauty of investing. But the point is, it's exciting when things are going right. And when you have someone like Amazon, I mean, the early on investors in Amazon, they're doing great. They're doing phenomenal.
What about TCPA compliance?
I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into a wide range of, well, there's a lot of different rabbit holes compliance-wise that you can run down. So,
well, hopefully, because you're going to be running for Congress, or you are, or going to be.
I'm going to be running in the near future. We're unofficially official running for LD1 in Arizona. Yeah.
Well, if you get elected, I want somebody to be on our side, the seller side, the TCPA. I'm totally for the rules, but the rules are stupid in half the cases. And like, for example, it just leads to ridiculous payoffs and predatory lawsuits. And it's almost like, man, if you get one of those, you're screwed if you're a business owner, even if you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that's like some politicians need to start fighting for the little guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's true that honestly,
I had to pay 50 G's because somebody received a text. Like, oh, you poor baby, you received a text you didn't want. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
And it's like, then I've been on the other side of the fence where it's like, oh, you have to prove damages. I'm like, well, what do you mean I have to prove damages? They're like,
just got a text.
Yeah, you got to prove that you were damaged. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how was he damaged with a text?
Yeah.
But the law stated blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, see, I need the people to change these laws because predatory solicitations and scammers. Yeah, I understand. That's who to protect. Okay, that's who it should protect. And I'm all for that. But somebody gets a text at 7:58.
Yeah.
And you can't text them until 8:00 a.m.
Yeah. There's one thing that I do to one of two people. It's either I am really good friends with you or we are the exact opposite and I don't like you at all. But I found this out. I like messing with people and I like having fun with life because life's short. I found this out the hard way. There's a website where if you look for healthcare insurance and you type in your information, you'll get bombarded with I'm not kidding you. I hit submit within the first hour. I got 47 phone calls. And by the end of the day, it was over 100 from spam calls because they just take that information and sell it into the ether to everybody. So I realized pretty quickly I can weaponize that. And my best friend and my bookkeeper and guy that I really don't like all got bombarded with a lot of healthcare solicitations from that. But I mean, it's to get back to your point. It's true though. There's a lot of red tape that's just been built into politics, and a lot of probably when they were penciling it up, it seemed like a great idea, right? It seemed like a great idea to actually go and start policing all these solicitations. But who do we actually see it get policed the most against? Because all of those healthcare calls, not a single one of them are getting hit with a $50,000 fine. And almost every single one of them deserves it without a doubt.
Yeah, because they're predatory.
They're predatory. And in what world is over 100 phone calls in a day appropriate because of one online form submission?
Yeah, that's insane. It happened to me because I told my partner, I said, hey, because we built this bootstrap, didn't raise money, didn't know to. I wish we would have. But one day I just said, hey, see if we can get like a line of credit at the bank. I was thinking like call the bank and see if they'll throw me $1 million line of credit or something. Yeah. You know, we have good Dun & Bradstreet. We've been in business 25 years. Like it's not too crazy to think because we've never had credit. So I'm like, hey, see if we can get a line of credit. Well, he went to some website, put in our name, uploaded our financials, and I think gave my cell phone for some reason. And since that day, I get 50, I think they're just lenders, texting, calling, rude. Yeah. Like I've answered them to be nice and be like, oh no, we don't really need money. That was just for this reason. Well, then why did they upload your documents? I said, well, because we were looking for a line of credit. And it's like, well, then I'd fire the guy because almost like a dick. Yeah. And I'm like, bro, we don't need any money. Thank you. Click. And these are all these high interest MCAs and stupid ones. Yeah. Those are the people that should be, held back a little bit. Yeah. Somebody texts me at 7:58 and I get 50 grand for it. Yeah. Why? Why didn't they have to prove damages? Yeah.
And I mean, it's because someone at Congress at one point in time had the right amount of leverage to actually get a bill passed. And the timing worked out. There's probably, I'm going to assume it was probably Democrats that pushed that bill through with maybe some bipartisan support. Since we are talking about solicitations, it's entirely possible there's some degree of bipartisanship there. But
well, if you get elected, dude, go help the business person.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my entire platform is people thrive with less government intervention in 9 out of 10 cases. I mean, you get government out of people's lives, they're going to do well, especially those that are self-motivated. Yeah. I mean, it's there's.
So would you say you're Republican?
Yeah, I'm definitely Republican. I have many libertarian views, for sure. I'd say I started off as a libertarian, and then eventually I grew up to be a Republican.
Is a libertarian the same thing as a liberal?
No.
They're close. Well, I mean, some people don't know the difference. Like what's a libertarian?
So yeah, a libertarian is someone who fundamentally believes in, really as little or no government as possible.
And I'm a libertarian.
Yeah. I mean, it worked in many ways. And I think a lot of, at least the current Republican platform is libertarian. There are certain components where it starts veering off because there have to be exceptions for society to function, right? You can't have people going out and murdering other people. You have to have,
those are called laws.
Yeah, and you have to have people to enforce those laws too.
Yeah, but there's federal laws and there's state laws. Yeah. Like I don't understand. I mean, shit, we'll do a town hall to see if the listeners want to vote for you. and you're down in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm in Arizona.
Phoenix.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask more about the compliance, but more for selfish reasons because, I had to go get all this stuff installed. And it's like, the crazy part is, dude, we don't solicit over the texts. Yeah. It was a notice that there was a call coming up that they had opted into and subscribed to.
And they still hit you with that?
Yes.
Interesting.
And I was telling my lawyer,
Yeah.
No, dude, this was this. I said, show me where I'm soliciting anything. This is for solicitors.
Yeah.
Long story short, or my lawyer was weak as circus lemonade. At the end of the day, they said, dude, you know, they wanted to subpoena records and get all up in our business. And it's like, I have nothing to hide. So I'm like, you know, whatever. But the lawyer said, you know, if they subpoena those records and there's anyone else that you might have done that isn't causing a problem, then it's X amount per one of those.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so again, and not only that, I had a service that was supposed to prohibit, like I had a compliance service. So if I text and it was 7:58, it never should have went out, or it should have waited and batched at 8 a.m. or whatever.
Was that an external service?
Yes.
Okay. So,
and then we called them, and guess what they said?
Not our problem.
Not our problem. And I'm like, dude, that's the only reason we're paying you is to be compliant, because we're trying to be compliant here.
Yeah. And honestly, I see a lot of that. Now, fortunately, we're having this conversation now, so that issue got addressed, right? So that's kind of me putting my consultant/attorney hat back on. But the issue that I see so often is people doing exactly that. They'll either hire someone who is not a law firm, not a genuine consultant. They just are good at marketing certain services that they know businesses have to have. And that's it. And people will, you're a business owner, you know what it's like. You have 1,000 different fires you have to put out every single day, and your agenda is probably pretty packed, especially early days. And you know that there's at least some compliance matters that you have to look at. So you hire someone, and that's a checked box, and you think it's done. Well, it's not always the case. I mean, I had again, another large high dollar figure client where it was the one where we negotiated $100 million worth of debt down to $12.5 million. And the compliance team that they had in place was just one big law firm. They hired this law firm. The lawyers were getting paid $1,600 an hour. I'm not going to name drop the firm because I don't think that's appropriate because of what two associates did, and one in particular. But that client, when they hired that firm, said, that's it. I checked the box for compliance. I'm going to do what the lawyers tell me. The first meeting I had with that firm is a Zoom call, and I use this screenshot in every single client meeting I have or prospective client meeting I have. I have a screenshot where the two associates that were on the case, one of them fell asleep on the Zoom call. Eyes closed, Zoom call, camera on. And I just took a picture of it. I was like, this client got billed for that call. $3,200 for the hour between the two of them. And one of the associates was sleeping. And that's who they have. That's who they have working for them, because there isn't somebody overseeing everything. And in your particular matter, it's possible that in that isolated incident, once it escalated to the point of like the government being involved for compliance purposes, that $50,000 was the right choice to just pay it out because it sucks, but you could very easily end up spending more than that in legal fees and have more exposure. So
that's what the case would have been. And it's just not fair.
Yeah.
So us business owners, like legitimate ones, we need freaking rules to defend us against civilians, predatory civilians. Cause turns out this was this guy's sixth one, and they even can show it.
Yeah.
Like, dude, this is the sixth time. Well, hey, go argue with the TCPA laws. And I'm like, dude, this is just robbery. That's why people hate lawyers. That's why people hate the government, because there's no common sense half the time. And a lot of these lawyers have no ethics. Yeah. They don't care either.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I would think as a lawyer, you should care.
You should care about what you're doing. You should care about the positions you're taking. But I will say a lot of the issues that have spiraled in the legal field are, I mean, again, it boils back to why I didn't like the legal profession when I first sold that firm, where 90% of what people are doing, or at least a high portion of what they're doing when they have a high caseload, is just CYA, and it's not as much on the merits of the case. And then you combine that with the fact that the average lawyer is probably making $140,000 a year, maybe $160,000. Better ones are at the $250,000 mark, unless they're doing their own thing. And they have student loans that are very high. They've spent so much time Like there's a lot that kind of goes into lawyers representing cases where realistically they should have probably told the client to just pound sand, or prospective client to pound sand. And I will admit, I'll be the first to admit that I'm pretty fortunate to be able to be more selective with the cases I take on nowadays. Cause I mean, I have plenty of people I went to law school with that still have $200,000, $300,000 worth of law school debt, and they have to pay their mortgage. They have to pay they have to deal with the client who has sent them 30 emails in the last hour, microanalyzing every sentence that they drafted in a motion.
Especially with AI out now.
Oh man,
because now lawyers are sending their advice, and someone's just taking it and throwing it at Chat GPT, and the Chat GPT says, "Oh no, you better watch out for this."
I have a handful of people that send me complaints that they've drafted with Chat GPT and ask me to read it and give them advice on whether or not I think it's sound, and I could spot it almost every single time. It's pretty clear. And I mean, listen, Chat GPT is a great tool. It's awesome. It's a great tool for people who know the ins and outs of the legal field and know how to operate it to utilize. I mean, it's if I have writer's block, but I know what argument I'm trying to bring in one paragraph of a motion, and I know that I'm citing to the right authorities, there is no harm to go to ChatGPT and say, hey, here's the argument I'm trying to make. Here's the authority I need you to cite to, and here's the analysis from that authority. And ChatGPT will spit out something that's at least 90% of the way there, and then I make some modifications to it. That isn't a problem.
That's what it should be used for.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, just because you have a wrench doesn't make you a mechanic. And having ChatGPT to turn into, at least not with its current form, doesn't make people lawyers. And a lot of people want to be pro se. And honestly, I don't blame them for many of the cases that they want to litigate.
What's pro se mean?
Pro se means self-represented. So a lot of people want to be self-represented. And in many cases, it makes perfect sense. Lawyers are expensive. If your claim is, I don't know, there's people with claims for $3,000 where they want to sue people for $3,000. Take it to small claims. I highly encourage it. Small claims is there for a reason. It's actually really easy to do.
What's the limit on small claims?
Yeah, it varies from state to state and county to county, but in Phoenix, 5,000. It just got increased to 5,000, which I think is a good threshold. 10,000 would be even better. But the benefits of small claims, there's actually quite a lot of them. First off, it's quick, it's effective, and most importantly, attorneys can't represent people in small claims. So unless all parties agree, and this is a rule that's state specific as well, but more often than not, small claims, everyone's representing themselves. So if you sue a big corporation, for example, corporation screwed you over, which we all know happens a lot. Walmart screws you over. You're going to talk to nobody for 5 hours. I don't know how they do, but whatever the case may be. If you want to go and just take that matter to small claims, they won't have an attorney that they can send to court. They have to send.
They can advise.
Well, an attorney could probably advise, and they can send an agent of Walmart, and they'd have to essentially argue that that attorney or whoever that agent is, whoever they send, isn't acting in their capacity as an attorney. So it's possible for them to try and work around it. But what happens more often than not is a corporation's going to see this, and even an attorney is going to see that. Exactly. And they're going to settle. They're going to say, you know what? Obviously, whatever we did to this person has been enough to where they filed a complaint against us, which you have to be pretty heated to get to that point, I would imagine. I'm a man of principle. I've gone down certain rabbit holes sometimes, and I mean, sometimes just writing a complaint is pretty therapeutic, whether or not you end up filing it afterwards. But taking it to small claims, serving it on another party, a lot of times that's enough to just get a phone call saying, hey, we don't want to deal with this, especially under $5,000. It's not worth their time to deal with this. They're just going to cut you a check and walk the other way. So I highly encourage it in those cases. And in those cases, pro se makes sense, and it's a natural. You actually have to do it. But in cases even where, I had another case where it was a lot of investors got defrauded, and the biggest fraud in this case was to the tune of $2.1 billion. And it was a crazy, crazy case. The guy's name is Miles Guo. He was indicted, found guilty. He's currently waiting sentencing, which hasn't been scheduled yet. When Steve Bannon got arrested, he got arrested on this guy's yacht. And this story's just wild. But the long and short of it is this Chinese guy flees China, made billions in real estate down there, takes off with billions of loans that he should have paid back but didn't, comes to America on his yacht, tries claiming asylum over here. Meanwhile, he's got a huge following because he's very in your face, Bugatti here, private helicopter, yacht, the whole shebang. Are you familiar with who he is? Okay, so he goes to America, tries claiming asylum. Initially, he was unsuccessful. I assume eventually he figured it out.
He paid someone.
Yeah, who knows who? I honestly, there's a handful of things which I was scratching my head on with that case. That asylum claim didn't make sense to me even a little bit. He could have filed for 1 million visas, but he just probably went with the big firm that didn't deal with immigration that much, and they steered him down the path of asylum, and he was unsuccessful the first time. So that aside, he had a big following because he was very anti-Chinese Communist Party. And there's a huge group of people that are just very anti-Chinese Communist Party, and they fled China because of the Communist Party. And he's got this huge following, and he tells that entire following that if they send him money, that they'll get it back tenfold. You know, your typical Ponzi scheme, really. Investors don't see anything back. This is just one of the scams that he's running. Another one is he was selling people beds and couches for $50,000, $20,000. And he would claim that there are these ultra luxurious couches when really it was something from IKEA. You know, like that was the type of scams that this dude was running, but he raised several $1 billion doing so. Now, the issue he ran into was while he's doing all this, he's trying to launder the proceeds from the original fraud, which happened in China, through some lady that was his right hand and this 21-year-old kid that was at MIT. And the 21-year-old kid was setting up all these LLCs for him, creating the bank accounts in his name. Then eventually the right-hand lady and that kid look at each other and they're like, wait a minute. There are accounts with all this money in it. Investors hate this guy. They don't hate us. So they take off and they start pointing the finger at him saying, you screwed over all the investors and we're on the investor side. Meanwhile, they have all of the investor money. And it was the most backwards thing. But they're manipulating people and they're trying to, make their own legacy money. And I mean, they haven't been indicted to date, which is pretty amazing.
And they have the money?
They have the bulk of it. They settled a decent chunk of it with the government, not all of it, far from all of it, but they did settle a lot with the government. But the government is very interesting with what they choose to do and when they choose to do it, especially when it's not their money. So the two things that you can, and I tell my clients this all the time, the two things where you can almost always rest assured that the government's going to come after you pretty aggressively for is, taxes or any fraud where government money is involved. So Medicare fraud.
Like Medicare for sure.
Huge. They're not going to take it easy on you. And with reason for those programs to exist, you can't have people siphoning it off. There was a Medicare fraud case out of New York recently where it was almost $11 billion worth of fraud that was siphoned off by 11 different individuals, one orchestrated scheme. All of this is allegedly because it's just according to the indictment, but 11 different Russian individuals in their mid-20s, early 30s siphoned off $11 billion from Medicare. And all that the government was able to recover was $25 million out of $11 billion. And that was in 12 months.
Wow.
Now, my thought process on that particular case was it's probably Russia and Russian agents trying to hit America back for the sanctions and all of the, asset forfeiture, which we did to them, where we were just taking yachts that belonged to Russian individuals. And, we took some pretty aggressive positions, especially early on in the war, that I don't think helped with the relationships there. So that is probably their response, although most of that indictment is sealed, and I don't think we'll ever see an unsealed version of it because it's probably other countries and classified information at play on a national scale. So it's going to be tough to get that information out of them. But I mean, it all just drives to the point that, I mean, if you want the government to take something seriously, mess with their money. That's a quick way to do it.
Well, Medicare.
Yeah.
I know a guy that does Medicare, like burns or something. Like if you get burnt, he sells it to the doctors.
Okay.
And
skin grafts?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, well, what's the biggest, because he was just making all kinds of money. I said, well, I said, dude, you're killing it. He goes, yeah, but you got to be careful. I said, what do you mean? He said, dude, if you don't dot every I and cross every T, they'll come and get you to put you in jail. I'm like, why? He goes, well, because they're paying for it.
Yeah.
So like, it's real easy to get into these businesses, but it's real easy to land in jail.
Yeah. And it's so, those in particular, I had quite a few cases that dealt with skin products and allografts. And those are very interesting to me because, for wounds in particular, there really aren't that many alternatives that work as well as skin grafts. There just aren't. Any skincare provider or doctor will tell you that. There's people that have had wounds for 6 months, elderly people that have had wounds for 6 months, and they just don't get better no matter what you do. They go through a process of utilizing skin grafts and it heals within the span of 12 weeks or less, more often than not. Obviously there's outliers with everything, but with that, it's interesting to me that you can have a product that works that effectively that still gets that heavily scrutinized when the cherry on top is the government's the one that sets the pricing for that product. So they want to police skin grafts especially heavily because of how expensive they are, but they're the ones that are setting the prices. They can just as easily say, well, we're just going to reimburse through Medicare at a far cheaper price. And they started doing it, but still not at what I would consider to be a reasonable price personally.
Yeah. Well, they're profitable.
Oh yeah.
Because this guy's making a killing.
No, they certainly are. But again, wherever the money is, there's going to be what the government very loosely refers to as fraud. And really what that is just people that either didn't know what compliance needed to be in place or trusted the wrong people with compliance. And probably a part of that equation, at least in some circumstances, is also the greed component. You have a lot of money, people want to make a lot of money, so they'll overlook certain things for compliance measures, and don't do that when the government's paying you.
Well, I know another guy that I met who apparently is still, I haven't talked to him in a while, but under some sort of Medicare fraud, and he's acting like, fuck them. They want me to give them $1 million to settle it. And I'm like, well, you showed me 4. Why wouldn't you just give them 1? Because you don't want to fuck with the government.
Yeah.
And he said, no, screw him. And I don't talk to him. I don't know him anymore. Yeah. But like, what do you think's going to happen to him? He supposedly hired a billing company that did it all. Somehow they did it.
It's only going to shield you so much.
But he was just an innocent doctor that, didn't know nothing. Well, my question is, how do you have $4 million now?
Yeah. I mean,
because it came from Medicare.
It depends on what hat I'm hiring. If your friend ends up hiring me, then I am going to say, you know what, he did his job, and we're going to analyze each of the patients, and we're going to lean into each and every single one of the patients that got better. And that's going to be the picture that we're painting. Meanwhile, we're also going to have backdoor conversations on here's your exposure and here's what the government's going to be saying. Hiring billing companies is common practice. Looking the other way when billing companies are doing things that are not scrupulous, it's a whole other story.
Knowing this guy, he probably had some sort of nefarious involvement.
Yeah, it's and again, I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And I like to, I've seen the government take very aggressive positions against people that were unsubstantiated enough times to where until something isn't genuinely proven in court, I like to lean in favor of the defense, usually with
the government.
With these types of things, usually, especially when we're talking about doctors. I'm not a doctor. Analyzing these cases where I'm looking at a patient chart and having to figure out why something is appropriate, I'm usually only going to do that within limitations. So what I mean by that is if I'm looking at a chart and the chart is showing me a picture of a 4 centimeter wound and this person billed for 8 centimeters worth of skin grafts. And I ask the doctor about it and the doctor says, well, yeah, but there's tunneling. And because of the tunneling, we had to get inside of the wound and the picture doesn't do it justice. Or in some cases it's bad chart keeping and let us pull this other email where there was a secondary wound for this person. So I'm not, especially when I'm coming in on the tail end and we're having to do a very extensive audit, I'm not going to go past that degree of questioning what the doctor did. Because if the doctor can come back to me and tell me with confidence, oh, there was tunneling and that's why, or, oh, there's this other email and that's why we did it. That's the extent of it. I'm going to document it. I'm going to put that in my file. That way, if they try and come back later, or if someone comes back later, because a lot of times I'll have Clarent do the audits, especially for Medicare. And if for whatever reason I have to substantiate a position that my consultancy took or my law firm took, then I'll have a documentation of that, which will only provide if the client waives privilege or if we're ever attacked and privilege gets waived. But that said, yeah, I mean, it all depends on what hat we have to wear, but you don't want to both myself as well as the government, frankly, they don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole of was something medically necessary, because the government's lawyer is not a doctor. Sure, they have experts and they could hire experts to come in and say, well, if I was the doctor, I would have done things differently. I was like, okay, well, you weren't and you weren't for a reason. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the case that I would typically end up, or how I would spend my time analyzing a case involving medical necessity, because again, it's the law says something, and I'm sure Congress had input from medical professionals when they were putting those laws together. But at the end of the day, unless you're the doctor seeing the patient, you're just not going to have all that information in front of you. So, well,
this $500 million SEC settlement, what was that about? Political figures, Chinese nationals, lobbying groups.
Yeah, so that had to do with that individual that got arrested on Miles when Steve Bannon got arrested on his yacht. It was that individual.
So did you get a settlement?
Yeah. So on behalf of the investors, and this kind of brings us back to the original point, there's still a spider web of lawsuits, as you could imagine, that came from that. Your average investor invested about $5 to $10,000. And a lot of these people don't speak good English. A lot of them aren't even in the country. Some of them are, but a lot aren't. For someone who invested $20,000, it makes way more sense for them to be pro se, I mean, self-represented, going up in a lawsuit than it would be to hire somebody who is going to represent them on a retainer basis and probably cost more than $20,000. That $500 million settlement with the SEC was facilitated on behalf of the investors that got duped, but that was only one of the capital raises. There were a lot more capital raises that investors have yet to see money back from. There's also what's called interpleader actions that were filed, where the banks deposited funds with the courts and said, hey, there's sketchy stuff going on. We don't want to get in the middle of it. We're just going to initiate a civil lawsuit, give the money to the court, let the court figure it out. And these interpleader actions are crazy. There's hundreds of different people involved. Almost all of them are pro se, and it makes perfect sense why they would be, because they're $5,000 to $20,000 investments. Why pay a lawyer to go litigate it? Go pro se. That's that. That's all there is to it. So
what's per se?
I don't think that's a thing.
Well, because
like the saying?
No, because sometimes, especially when you're on the internet, people talk shit.
Yeah.
And it's total bullshit. And so I asked a lawyer once, I said, they're lawyers. Like, shouldn't they know better than to make claims and make it represented as if it's true and it's real, when they A, don't know because they didn't investigate, and B, they're taking the word of some dumbass. Yeah. And three, they're claiming that someone did something that they did not do. And it's damaging, or potentially, because again, nobody's really listening to the idiots, but it's damaging that person. Couldn't that person sue them? And they said, yeah, that's defamation per se.
Yeah. So,
and I'm like, what's per se?
Yeah. So it's in short, it really means that you're hitting the very literal definition of the elements that you need to. So, it's taking me back to the law school days, but, there's hypotheticals for every different, I guess, statute or claim that people can go for. So there's a hypothetical for your ideal defamation claim. There's a hypothetical for your ideal claim to liability in a car crash. And if someone hits that exact hypothetical that we're walking down, then that's negligence per se. That's, I don't know, whatever claim.
Which means that's the definition of the shit.
Yeah, it definitionally meets that criteria.
Yeah. So you know what they were told? Well, you have to prove damages. So you have to prove that the defamation cost you something.
Defamation's an interesting one, and so is libel, but both are interesting because courts have a tendency of leaning in favor of going against the person who's claiming it because it's restrictive on language, which goes against the First Amendment. So generally speaking, when courts are going to go and start restricting the First Amendment, there's only 5 exceptions. It's been a while since I've done constitutional law, but there's 5 exceptions, I believe, to the First Amendment. And unless something falls within those 5 exceptions, the courts don't want to really restrict it. And they want to err on the side of not doing it because realistically, I could think of almost every single lawsuit I've ever touched, and the winning party would go after the losing parties for defamation because of all of the things that they said throughout the lawsuit. And that's kind of what courts want to avoid because there's a chilling effect when you're starting to tell people what they can and can't say, right? So that's...
Well, dude, you shouldn't be able to defame somebody.
I agree.
So like if if after the podcast I get on my social media and I said, hey, I just interviewed this lawyer dude and he was pervy and he propositioned 2 of my ladies. Total bullshit.
Yeah.
And now nobody wants to hire you anymore.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that's wrong?
100%.
Is that not defamation?
Well, yeah.
Especially you came in, you were a perfect gentleman. I didn't say allegedly. That's what they told me. Yeah. I say I saw it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't. Yeah. It's like, come on. There's got to be some rules. Again, what's common sense anymore these days?
Yeah, no, and
common sense is if you're lying, like when the Me Too movement was happening, dude, listen, I know that there's pervs out in the world, and I know there's women that got it, and I know there's men that got it. But I think like if you're a female and you claim that a man did something to you that egregious and get caught lying, well, then you should be the one receiving the punishment he would have got had he been found guilty. So now women are not going to do so many false accusations.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that happens. I'm not talking about when it happens. I'm talking about when they're lying because people can do that.
Yeah.
People get a divorce and they make claims and, they get mad at somebody and they're like, well, wait till I tell them what you did and you didn't do anything and shit like that. So, I mean, like, dude, the law is not blind with equal fucking bullshit.
No.
The law is basically who can get the best lawyer. And that's why you better get the best lawyers.
I completely agree. And frankly, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, I told you what courts generally lean towards when it comes to defamation claims. Defamation still exists. There's still a statute for it. Every state has its own variation of it, whether or not you're going on a state or a federal level. It's out there and you can still make claims, and completely with you as far as, the very real reputational damages that come with it. And frankly, those are damages that oftentimes are hard to prove and calculate too, especially if you're self-employed. It's difficult to say, okay, well,
it's not hard to prove. I could say, listen, a buddy of mine and I were going to do a $10 million deal. And because of that, he doesn't want to do the deal anymore. And he'll testify to that. Isn't that proof?
Could be, but they could also, so they could also depose. And if I'm the attorney on the other side, I'm going to probably want to depose the people on that other side of the deal and look at what they were trying to point to. And if they can find external factors that also played in. So, and
nope, you say, nope. As soon as I heard that, I bailed out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
especially if I'm wink, wink in cahoots with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, the claim is out there and the claim can be made. I will say there is,
I think especially if you're a lawyer, you should say the word allegedly, just like you did a while ago.
Yeah.
You said allegedly because it's this, but that's what they're claiming. Yeah. That's responsible.
Yeah.
These people didn't say allegedly this is the case. Yeah. They said it was the case.
So there's responsible, there's what decent human beings should do, and then there's what is worth litigating. And that's a distinction that I try and draw very often, because there's a lot of people that are just genuine scumbags that I absolutely detest that frankly we could have obliterated in court had we have gone to court. But is it worth the pursuit of litigation? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. Personally, if I'm hiring an attorney, I want the attorney to be the guy that's going to fight me on every single legal theory that I'm posing to him, because that means that whatever conclusion we reach is going to be one that's well fleshed out and we thought of all the pros and cons. But B, I also want the attorney that's not going to just go down every rabbit hole that's out there and just be there to bill. Really, that's the guy that I want to avoid. Spend my money, but spend it wisely. I have a budget for everything. My clients have a budget for everything. Let's make sure that we're actually doing things either under budget or at the budget mark and effectively. And it's not always the case that filing every claim that you can file is beneficial. I don't know your case in particular. It could very well be and then we have a conversation after this. And
well, it ain't my case.
Oh, okay. I don't know. If there's a $10 million deal,
case.
If there's
allegedly my case,
an alleged case where $10 million walked away, I mean, that's a very viable claim to go after somebody. And frankly,
well, I was just saying I could, if it were against me, I mean, I'd prove damages, dude. I could get buddies of mine to make bullshit claims. Since they can bullshit, why can't I bullshit? So it's like, it just goes back and forth. But, one time I was at a gentleman's house by the name of Charles Koch. You ever heard of him?
Sounds really familiar.
Koch brothers.
Yeah.
They're huge. They're like some of the richest people in the world. And I asked him, what's one piece of advice that you wish you knew building Koch Industries? He said, stay out of lawsuits. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you can help it, stay out of lawsuits. Like, if you can help it, just stay out of lawsuits. And I always remembered that. Yeah. And there's times where I could have sued people, but I didn't because he said that. And not only that, it wasn't that offensive, but I mean, I would sue if I felt massively wronged and the other side was a prick, then I would. Yeah. But normally, dude, I'm a live and let live kind of guy. You screwed up, you made a mistake. Hey, you can't pay me, you're broke. Okay, whatever, dude. Thank you anyway. Get out of here. I'm
typically the same way, and I try and I have one matter where I had a judgment against somebody. Personally, I have a judgment against somebody for about $6 million, and we collected on about 3 of it so far. But I have offered that individual in particular countless times opportunities to just walk away where I didn't even want to collect on the judgment. We got to the point where we got that judgment. I was already victorious. I won on every single element and got the judgment, started enforcing it, offered him an opportunity to walk away. The guy doesn't want to walk away because he's too principled. It's the most maniacal thing, but some people just don't see that there is a benefit to just focusing on things that are productive instead of clustering the legal system, and they won't even acknowledge when they lost. And that's, it's a shame because there's better ways to spend energy, honestly.
Well, if I were listening to this, Gabriel, I would be wanting to know your info in case, or because I would want that type of service. Yeah. A lawyer that basically protects you against lawyers is what it sounds like. Or not protects, but just double checks, because I think it's a smart idea. Where do people reach out to you? Yeah,
so my main website is apacheconsults.com. But frankly, this is whether or not it comes back to bite me later. I mean, I'm happy even throwing my cell phone out there because that's the kind of guy I am. 928-255-7555. People can text me. People can call me.
Well, dude, I mean, there's a lot of people listening. You might get pranks. You might get dick pics.
Go for it.
And full disclosure, do I need to give a disclosure that whatever happens because you just gave it out publicly is not my responsibility?
You're all good. You're all good. Have fun with it.
But I want to spend a minute because I know you got to go, but I want to spend a minute talking about your run for Congress. Because again, there's probably a lot of people listening in Phoenix. Like you sound like a fair dude. What are your thoughts there? What are you trying to accomplish in Phoenix as a congressman?
I mean, my biggest focus is definitely focusing on what's going to give people the most opportunities to thrive. To me, the solution for that's a pretty evident solution is to get government out of people's lives.
Folks don't need to hear no more. Like, if somebody doesn't understand that, I don't get it. Who wants more government interference? Because 9 times out of 10, it is interference.
Yeah. And
like they're not even next to you. It's not like the government's next door.
Yeah.
The government half the time are filled with people that are pissed off and miserable. You ever been to the DMV?
Oh yeah.
You ever watch some of these government agencies? They come in and it's not like there's just really intelligent, awesome people. Right. It's like, dude, they're the miserable ones that are pissed off.
Do you guys have third-party DMVs over here?
No.
Okay. In Arizona we do, and it's just amazing. But for the longest time we had just regular DMVs. Then third-party DMVs started popping up, and it's what it is it's a privatized, locally run by some Joe Schmo DMV, and they have all of the licensing services that a DMV does.
Where we're the customer again.
Yeah, and you walk in, you walk out within 5 minutes.
Because we're the customer.
Yeah, and it changes everything. And in Arizona, that's like the biggest. We had a conversation earlier with liberals. I always start off with, I think the solution to people thriving is actually less government. And usually that starts a dialogue where it's not as combative as you're a Republican and therefore you are a Nazi. So with that, in Arizona, I mean, the perfect example to point to is, well, we've all spent hours at a regular DMV before, and then we've all gone to a private MVD before nowadays too. And we've seen the difference. So why would you want to advocate for anything where the solution is to go and get more of the government DMV instead of more of the version of that A, costs the taxpayers less, and B, does the job more effectively? I think we should always want to do the job more effectively. Now, where I start veering away from libertarian views, it starts with foreign policy. For starters, libertarians tend to think that America first is America only. I think it's a very naive perspective to take on the world. We're a superpower. The reason we are a superpower and have been as long as we have is because of our foreign policy. We can't not do anything on a foreign basis. Could we be smart about it? Sure. We can be
that's
smart.
Not what America first means.
What? Putting money in foreign countries?
America first, not America only.
Yeah, exactly. And
but America first people are not saying don't help anybody. We're saying, hey, how about we help our own people?
Yeah.
First.
Absolutely.
Like if we got enough money, and that's another thing with this freaking government. I thought we were in massive debt.
Yeah.
So how are we sending billions and billions and billions? We're just printing it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like, doesn't everybody realize that's a scam right there?
Yeah. I mean, the whole basis of just printing our way out of these issues is something that, it's a looming issue that eventually is going to catch up to us. And I think, frankly, is the reason why liberals have gotten to the extremes that they have. And frankly, Republicans and some fringe groups have as well. The extremes are usually a byproduct of portions of society that aren't functioning properly. On the liberal side, what you'll notice from a lot of the protests it's people that they are trying to find some basis or cause to latch onto to feel better about their everyday circumstances that are unpleasant. Now, that can be unpleasant because of their finances. It could be unpleasant because they haven't moved up career-wise. It could be unpleasant because they have crippling debt. It could be unpleasant for a whole number of reasons. I mean, groceries went up, almost doubled under Biden. So that's a very valid reason to argue that there is an affordability issue. Now, what the solution to that is where we're going to differentiate ourselves, because the solution to me isn't doing what Biden did and just ignoring inflation and increasing taxes on everybody that's helping the economy. The solution is going to be to get government out of people's lives and giving businesses the opportunity to succeed.
Like Doge.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring Doge back.
I think they did great. I think they're still doing great. They still have some projects that they're working on.
Not like there was when Elon was in there rooting around.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Because dude, I don't know, I don't believe the media, but I saw shit like, did you know, and by the way, the IRS agents, that they're like $5 billion in back taxes, according to, again, I don't believe it, but according to the media, there's IRS agents that were out there busting your onions, and they themselves owed back taxes.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Or government was spending, for example, like millions of dollars on sushi for the government workers. It's like, what? And just government waste. And then, $10 million to see what transgender mice think about, Sesame Street in Libya. Like, seriously? And I can't believe it, because it's like, who is allowing these things?
Well,
that's not government, dude. That's stupidity.
The part that's amazing to me is, well, first off, this is a point that I've been bringing up a lot lately. The government was shut down for 44 days, largely.
And you didn't see any chemtrails in the sky when it was happening either.
Well, things were functioning for the most part perfectly fine. The Department of Education shut down. Have things changed negatively as far as that goes?
And the only reason I wanted it to start back up was because I saw the lines of military guys in food lines.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, government shut down. Why did the checks need to shut down?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you should always take care of military.
Yeah. You should take care of military. And I mean, we need government for certain things. We need the military. We need a police force. We need ICE. We need.
Well, there should have been essential allowed to continue.
Yeah. I mean,
just like COVID, essential. Walmart could continue, but the little guys couldn't.
Yeah. I was hopeful that if we got anything out of it, we would have gotten the end of the filibuster, which I'm still hopeful could potentially be on the horizon, because really all they did was they kicked the ball back to the end of January. So in theory, we could very well end up dealing with the same issues again. But I think there were a lot of major pressure points that Democrats saw. Democrats weren't expecting Republicans to stay as united as they were. Usually it's actually the opposite, where Democrats are notorious for sticking together and not really buckling on anything.
Well, they're up against Trump. He's a deal maker.
Yeah, he is. And I mean, he's got the Republican Party rallying behind him, and with good reason. I mean, he's the one steering the ship. He's the one that got the popular vote for the first time in however long for the Republican Party. He's the one that the American voters voted for. His policies are what the American voters voted for. They didn't vote to give health care to people who are in the country illegally. That's not what the American population voted for. And no, he's not a king for doing what the American population did vote for. In fact, he is a president for doing that. So what would be a king would be conceding to the minority who didn't win the election because they're good at being really loud. They're not good at thinking critically, but they're good at being loud. And if that's all you're good at, then, I mean, I guess keep at it. You got another 3.5 long years ahead of you of that. And then hopefully more years of more Republican control. So,
there will be.
Yeah.
Again, unless the media spins it.
Yeah.
So how did you get into politics?
Well, so I've always been very intrigued by it. October 7th for me was something that really hit close to home. My entire family is in Israel. Watching a lot of the narratives kind of shift in ways where I just feel like a lot of what's been said was genuinely false and misleading, and by design was created to mislead the general public and to create almost a bad PR campaign for Jews and Israelis across the globe. I mean, you have soccer fans of Israeli teams that aren't even allowed to go to stadiums in the UK right now, and the war has been over. So that's
supposedly it's working, because like I hear a lot of negative rhetoric against Israeli government. Like all of a sudden now they're shooting Charlie Kirk and they're doing this and that, and it's like, man, they're the bad guys. So if you guys own the media, supposedly, well, then you're not doing a very good job of controlling it because it's not working for your favor.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's and I guess the point of Jews controlling the media, I mean, listen, Jews have historically done well, and I think a lot of it is attributable to just our mentality of having to persevere through whatever we're put through. I think that kind of creates just this embodiment of something in our genetics where, I mean, if I go to Israel, I see nothing but more people that think exactly like I do. And I haven't actually lived in Israel a day in my life. I've visited and that's about it. But it's that same mentality of just, we have a mission, we're going to get that mission done. And that's why, I mean, we make great lawyers, we make great doctors, because we go into everything with that mentality. And I mean, that mentality.
You make great jewelers.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's, that said, I mean, if we were genuinely running the media, I don't know why most of Hollywood would be waving Palestinian flags and in support of the first Antifada and stating that they should globalize another Antifada, which for those that don't know is just a atrocity that happened in Israel where a bunch of innocent civilians were slaughtered and terrorists were flaunting the killings of innocent people.
Well, again, what do you say to people that say, well, that was set up, like that was technically you guys doing it yourself so you can get the rights to go do this and that? Because I stay out of it because, dude, I don't know. And I don't think a lot of Americans know because they're not there. Yeah. All we get to see is what the media says. But I have heard that every time you think, well, yeah, I stand with Israel. Well, that's because they're doing that themselves, like the October 7th, and again, I stay out of it. So all I'm saying is I've heard, well, you guys have the best, what do you call it? Intel. Surveillance in the world. Yeah. The intel. And then I've heard, well, you let that happen so you could go do what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean,
how do you know who's telling the truth?
Also, so first off, I mean, I'll respect anybody that's willing to have a genuine and honest conversation and actually want to look for the truth. And for those, I've had plenty of friends that have said, you know what, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have a reason to really get involved in this one. And I have friends on both sides, so I'm not going to get involved with it. And that I completely respect. What I don't respect is people that they bite into whatever superficial basis they have to bite into because they got the knee-jerk reaction and didn't ask questions afterwards. And then they start going to town with that.
Yeah, or they just choose to believe whatever they heard first.
Yeah. And now the concept that the Israeli government was behind something like October 7th, I mean,
well, look at 9/11, bro.
Yeah.
We say that was a government cover up and it was not some jets and yada, yada, yada. But of course there's millions of people that think there has been. So like, who knows the truth?
We don't. But what I always default to is the government. The reason I always advocate for less government is because generally speaking, they're not going to be that effective. So for 9/11, for example, people who say that, well, the government should have known that it was coming. Maybe they did, but maybe it was the guy who's bottom level at the CIA that was talking to his boss and his boss was saying, you know what, I don't think there's really much here because, well, who's this Osama guy? Or let me check with Joe Schmo in this office over here. And then it gets caught in the bureaucracy of things. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at when it comes to government being effective. And that's on the American side. On the Israeli side, I mean, we have the Mossad and they're phenomenal in many regards, but they're not perfect. They're still the government. It's still a government agency. And there's still a reason why I'm going to, no matter what, default to we need less government. And that's usually going to be the solution. It doesn't mean that we need to defund the military. It doesn't mean that we don't need to be smart about where we're allocating resources for the portions of government that are pertinent for the country's existence. But we shouldn't necessarily say that because the government knew something, then they were in on it.
Well, you can't say that they didn't.
Yeah, you can't say that they didn't, but I shouldn't have to prove a negative. I think the person who's making the claim should have to establish that claim for me.
True.
And instead, what we have is we have a group of terrorists that even their current supporters, I'm talking about Hamas, but even their current supporters are not advocating against what they did, but instead they're justifying what they did. And they were justifying it before.
Well, there's no justification on either side, if you ask me. Like I would not blow up hospitals with babies because there's terrorists underneath. I just send in my troops.
Well, I mean, they did, but what you found when they were first actually sending in their troops, first off, actually, let's backpedal a little bit.
Sure, we should have started with this. This is what's going to get all the heat.
There's a lot to unpack with it, but realistically, I mean, it's the data that we're getting, whether it's true or not, is kind of the first foundational point. Because at first, I think it was about 2 months into the war, Hamas was claiming that 80,000 civilians were dead. And they were claiming that it was all civilians. They weren't differentiating between Hamas militants and Palestinians. They said, no, 80,000 were dead and the majority were women and children. And we didn't have any proof to the contrary because, well, there's limited access in war zones. That's just the reality of it. But what Israel did do was they dropped leaflets in advance warning civilians that they're about to bomb the place. They texted every single cell phone in the region. Before they would drop a bomb, they would drop an empty shell to warn the people in that region that a bomb is inbound, and then they would actually bomb the place. I don't know.
Now see again, if that's true, well then, hey, there's nothing fair about war.
Yeah.
But if they did that, well then, hey, they gave them reasonable heads up.
Yeah, and I mean,
anybody, unless they're stupid, would leave.
Yeah, and it's.
But what if they didn't do that? Would you be pissed?
If they didn't?
Yeah, like what if they're I mean, dude, listen. If I'm Jewish, I'm obviously going to stand with my people.
Yeah.
But once I figured out, oh no, that's bullshit. Because I've seen some Jewish rabbis for Palestine.
Yeah. So if they didn't do that, I still don't know that I would be pissed, because I think at the end of the day, this isn't a war that Israel brought on. This is a war that's been brewing for quite some time. This war is rooted in the idea that Jews aren't entitled to be in that region, and aren't entitled to have any component of land in that entire region. And I mean, there's been plenty of two-state solutions that have been on the table, and every single one of them have been rejected by the Palestinian people because they just don't believe that Jews are entitled to be there. Now, Jews, by their very definition, ancestrally, have come from Judea, Samaria. That's where Jews come from. And
where?
That Judea, Samaria, and that's in Israel. Now,
well, no one's arguing that, right?
Well, so that's, some people are. So,
Palestine.
So Palestinians are arguing that.
Well, it wasn't it called Palestine?
No. So Palestine actually was never something that officially was created. There was the British Mandate of Palestine, which was where the British.
You look on a map, it says Palestine.
Which map and who printed it? Because
back in the day,
when was it created?
I don't know. See, this is why I don't argue.
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
I wish I had everybody that wants to argue here, because then you guys could debate. But all I'm saying is, and I don't believe any of it. Just for my listeners, just so you know, once you think the media is full of shit, which I do, well, then you can't believe it, even if you want to. So when I hear the bad against Israel, I think, that could be bullshit. When I hear the good against Israel, that could be bullshit. Like you just told me, well, they did this. You weren't there. You don't know that. You're just believing what you heard.
Not quite, because I also get videos from my cousins who are in the IDF who are stationed in Gaza, and we're stationed along the northern border too. And
so again, how come those don't get released?
Oh, they probably arguably shouldn't have been even taking videos in the first place, and I was giving them crap about that too. But all of that just to say, too, I don't want to take away from the Palestinian identity or Palestinian people. I mean, that's a tactic that I've noticed a lot of Palestinians or pro-Palestinian people have taken. Palestine has never been a country. What was created at one point in time was the first time when Jews were expelled from the region. Well, not the first time.
What were they expelled for?
Romans commandeered the place.
Man, we're talking about a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, this spans
can't we all just let it go?
I know, right? It would be nice. But so far, the only side that's really looking to do that, in my opinion, is the Israeli side. I mean, there's a reason that 2 million people in Israel are Arabs, and I can't name a single Jew in Palestine or in the West Bank or in Gaza who isn't considered a settler and gets attacked on a daily basis. So, I mean, the idea that Jews are, for whatever reason, the basis for there being a conflict is something that I just fundamentally reject. We've been at the table wanting to have peace since inception. That's just the reality of it. But the history of the term Palestine, it actually started as Philistines. And the reason that started was because when the Romans kicked out the Jews, they wanted to eradicate any historical landmark of Jews ever being there. So they called them Philistines, and it was almost like a slur to them to take away their identity. And now you are called the Philistines. Now, as that evolved and they were shunned to certain regions, there were, at one point, there was a third Christian Philistines, a third Jewish Philistines, and a third Arab Philistines. Now we've kind of fast forwarded quite a bit. Now, that land has obviously been hotly contested. There's been a lot of different countries that have laid claim to that land. But ultimately, when you're going back to the 1800s, Jews started getting expelled from the region. And then early 1900s, the Arabs in the region decided to work very closely with the Nazi Party to actually force all of the Jews into Europe and into concentration camps and to force their way out of what is today known as Israel, or what they will refer to as Palestine. Now, when World War II was over, all these people wanted to come back. They don't have another place to go. They don't want to trust France when France buckled under pressure. They don't and caved into the Nazis. They don't want to trust any other region. They want to have their own region, their own country where they can feel safe. So they go back to, Israel, which was a part of the partition plan by the UN. There's three ways historically that any country is formed. One, people are there originally and they're ancestral to the land, which I would argue Jews are. Two, it's partitioned by a governing agency, i.e. the UN, as they did in 1948, and that's by agreement. The agreement was provided and actually presented a two-state solution. Palestinians rejected it. Israelis did not. And then three is by force and by war. And the reason the map has changed is because wars were continuously launched against Israel by Palestinians because they refused to acknowledge Israel's right to exist.
Even in Israel?
Yeah, they don't want to. If you look at in most Arab countries, I was born in South Africa, and I remember growing up, some of the maps we would get in school, it's very, they lean very heavily into the Arabic mentality, or at least more on the, I guess, extreme side, if you will. I would like to consider it more of an extreme, at least for some hope of optimism in the future. If you look at the maps, it doesn't show Israel there. They refuse to acknowledge that Israel exists, even though Israel is a very real country and has been for quite some time and isn't going anywhere. They refuse to believe that it exists, and they have historically, and they've launched wars with Israel historically for that very reason. And every single war, Israel hasn't started the war, but they finished it, and they finished it successfully. And that's why the map has gotten larger. Now, one thing I will argue is the Palestinian state already exists, and that exists by the simple fact that Jordan is the Palestinian state. The actual map, if you're going back on the drawings and when everything was partitioned off, most Palestinians ended up in Jordan. And if they didn't end up in Jordan, the Palestinians from Gaza ended up in Egypt. But in 1967, what both Jordan and Egypt started realizing is there's a large fringe group of people responsible for some very extremist views, and it doesn't quite sit well with their societal views. So they started going and killing those people, and those people were Palestinians that ended up going back to Gaza and seeking refuge ultimately from Egyptian control and from Jordanian control. And there was a whole war fought over it that ended in 1967. And that's when Israel took over control for both Egypt and for Jordan. And yeah.
Well, I mean, if I had some other people at the table, would they agree with that? Like, is that a known fact, or is that a?
I mean, listen, people disagree about virtually everything nowadays, but historically, it's a very. I mean, yeah, it's a very well-known fact. I haven't heard anybody try and dispute the fact that Egypt doesn't control Palestine anymore.
When you're running for Congress, why do you want to be so vocal? Wouldn't that hurt your campaign if you get a bunch of people that are pro-Palestine, and then, obviously it'll help you if they're pro-Israel, but like, yeah. Here's a question that I have. Why is it that if anybody says anything negative about Israel, they get sanctioned and shut down. And that is kind of true, because I have a friend of mine that was trying to get a government contract with the state of Tennessee. And he said, look at this. And he texts me, and at the bottom of the contract with the state of Tennessee, that he wouldn't talk shit about Israel.
That's interesting. I'm not entirely sure, but I also don't agree with the fact that the country can't face criticisms. In fact, I think the most vocal critics of Israel are actually Israelis. And I think there's a lot of Israelis that would do things different had they've been the ones responsible. I don't know that I would have done too much different than what Bibi Netanyahu would have done had I have had to make the same decisions that he did. If anything, I would have tried to do what he did a little bit faster, because I feel like the war was just drawn out far longer than what it should have been. But the reason, so I guess to speak on your buddy's contract, I don't know the background on it.
And I didn't authenticate the contract. Could have been bullshit.
And it could very well be that somehow the Israeli government has some degree of involvement in that contract on the back end. We don't really know what the government's doing on all levels. There's tiers also to classified information.
Yeah, but that's the problem. We don't know shit. We're choosing to believe. And obviously, if I'm Jewish, I'm going to jump on the Jewish side. If I'm Palestinian, I'm going to jump on the Palestinian side. And meanwhile, we're all at war with each other, when in reality, dude, we should probably just like that's why I'm America first. Because let's worry, and there's nothing over there that we should worry about. But how about let's worry about America first? Yeah. Let's worry about our homeless. Let's worry about our schools. Let's worry about our government and our dirty government. Yeah. Let's worry about our debt. Let's fix America first. Yeah. Israel looks like they can do pretty well by themselves.
I completely agree on most of those points. I mean, my entire campaign for Congress has actually quite little to do with Israel and everything to do with the problems that Arizonans face.
Congress just for Arizona. That's how the Congress, you would go there to represent Arizona.
For District 1, yeah. And my only focus really is Arizonans. Now, we have a big community of Israelis and just Jews in Arizona, and I'm going to listen to those communities. And I mean, I'm telling you what my principles are, and I'm telling you what my positions are on certain stances. And if you agree with it, then vote for me. And if you don't, then you don't have to. But at the end of the day, let's look at what
worked for Mom Donnie.
Yeah, I mean, it has. And I mean, I think he's a byproduct of a failed system where just people are getting pushed to the extreme. And I'm trying to pull it back to something that's a little bit more basic, which I think most people start trying to argue, and then they start veering down rabbit holes that are kind of unnecessary. We need less government intervention in our lives for people to succeed. That's it.
I'm telling you, that's the key right there. And I don't care whether you're liberal or Democrat or libertarian or Republican. That's a fact.
Yeah. I want people to pay less in taxes. I want them to deal with less headaches. I don't want you to have to go to a government funded MVD. I want you to go to a private MVD that some American is making money off of and is making everyone else's life easier. I don't want construction that's going to take place for 5 years to supposedly make things easier for people to travel to and from places. Meanwhile, for the 5 years, it's just congested, and then population growth happens, and then you have to do construction all over again. Or I don't want abandoned projects. I don't want my neighbor having to go through bankruptcy. I don't want, I want these people to succeed, but more importantly, I want them to just have the tools to succeed. And the best way to do that, as anybody in any type of government position, is to find ways to reduce the government's role in their lives. That's it.
Shut it off. Let me ask you a question. Yeah. When's this election?
The election is in November. Primary is in August.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, or that's a long time from now.
Yeah, it is.
So why don't we, because again, we're going to have to go 2 parts if we don't end this. Why don't I invite you back? Yes, we're not far away. You can just pop back up.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And then let's just talk about this.
Yeah.
Because we talked too long about the other stuff. I want to talk more about this.
Yeah, let's do it. Just let me know when. I'll be back.
Whenever you like.
All right.
Next week after.
Yeah.
Just pop back up. You're going to be in the town again. I mean, apparently you can do whatever you want pretty much.
I can pop by whenever. I just, I know we have a couple travel plans coming up, so we'll just figure out the scheduling, but yeah, I'd love to come back whenever.
And then we'll talk about your run. We'll talk about politics. Cause I'm not a big political guy, Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's like real into politics. I'm like, stay away from it. But like, this is an interesting conversation, but I don't know if this is the longest in the history of dropping bombs or not. I think the last one might have been. Yeah. But yeah, dude, I'll tell you what. Let's bring you back.
Cool.
And let's talk just about that.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Awesome.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Folks,
you tell me when.
Listen, if you're already convinced you love the dude from a lawyer perspective, because if I was listening to the majority of this podcast, I'd want to hire you to start handling stuff. Not that you're hireable, but folks, at least call him, ask him questions. He gave out his number. And then if you're in Arizona and you can vote again, stick around because I'm going to bring him back next week and we'll drop that one in plenty of time. So we'll call it a town hall. Phone number one more time.
928-255-7555.
That's crazy. You give that out. Folks, and you guys, Apache Consults. Until next time, keep it real.